Today, we're looking at Noodler's Tchackovsky. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, Noodler's Tchackovsky is a purple ink. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples, I put the ink into a different pen for a day, I then put it into a Levenger TrueWriter with a broad nib to take my notes for this video. Now, before we look at the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. Now we see a purple line that is really showing the outline of where the original ink was pushed. The rest of it pushes up and is just a pure purple. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And it does not budge. It is completely bonded with the paper in only 10 minutes. It makes me feel like this is going to have some ridiculous resistance. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pens. Now, I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it handles as well as you would expect it. Now, the extra fine writing with this ink looks more like a fine. It does have a bit of spread that occurs with it, and it did not spread after the 3 days that it was allowed to bond with the paper. This is a great note-taking ink if you have to worry about spilling anything on it. Water had no effect at all. You can't even tell that this was tested, but it was tested. Pen flush, there's an area that looks a little bit more blue than purple. That's where the pen flush was. It had almost no effect on removing this ink from the paper. It only discolored the ink a little bit. The 1/3 bleach solution did the same thing. You see this grayish purple dot at about the 2 o'clock position from where the word bleach is. That's all that the 1/3 bleach solution did. Now, when I put this into my pen, I actually used a Jinhao converter instead of using my Levenger converter because I was afraid of staining. And I'm glad I did. It was a lot of work to get this ink out of that cheap converter. But it does make me wonder if there's a difference between good, expensive converters and inexpensive converters. I would make sure you use this with a more inexpensive pen before you run to something expensive, just in case. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with a realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Noodler's Tchackovsky has a viscosity of 3.39, making this a very dry but also dense ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done with the extra fine and medium nib on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Noodler's Tchackovsky has an average dry time of 6 seconds, making this ridiculously fast as a drying ink. And that's because of its aggressiveness to seep into the page. Now, let's look at the writing samples. I picked this ink up in sample form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairefontaine. We get no bleeding and some minor ghosting. The 1.1 has spread. No feathers, but it definitely has some spread. No halo, sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is the exact same tone as the 1.1. It has spread. It's thicker than an extra fine. It has no feathering, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 2 seconds to dry. Super fast. Super fast. The medium is the exact same tone as the extra fine in the 1.1. It has spread. It has no feathering, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 3 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We didn't get any. In a smear test, you could recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Tomoe River.
We get no bleeding. Of course we get ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather. It has spread. No halo sheen and no shade. It has, no feather. It has spread. No halo sheen and no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the 1.1. It has no feathering. It has spread. It has no halo sheen and no shade. The medium is the exact same tone as the extra fine in the 1.1. It has no feathering. It has spread. No halo, no sheen, and no shade, 11 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we got none. In a smear test, you could not recover this if you smeared while you were writing. Rhodia. No bleeding, but we get ghosting. A little bit of ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather. It has spread. No halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the 1.1. It has no feathering. It has spread. No halo, no sheen, and no shade. 4 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the 1.1. It has no feathering, but it has spread. And no halo, no sheen, and no shade. 6 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both show us show us plenty of color variation in both of them, but we get none in the writing sample. In the smear test, you could definitely recover if you smeared while you were writing. And I took my notes with a Levenger True Writer in broad. Now it didn't bleed, but look at the ghosting that's going on. It's amazing how much you can see through it. Fabriano Eco Qua. Now, I like this paper. It tends to tame the beast of some inks. It has no bleeding. It has ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the 1.1. It has no feathering, and it has spread. With no halo, no sheen, no shade, 2 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the 1.1. The medium has no feather. It has spread. No halo, no sheen, and no shade, 2 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we got none. And the smear test you could definitely recover if you smeared while you were writing. And I was trying nicer papers on purpose because this is an aggressive ink. Now, Apica has no bleeding and no ghosting. Fantastic. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. The extra fine has no feather, and it has spread. No halo, no sheen, and no shade. 3 seconds to dry. Don't use this in, a double broad, because man, oh man, it's going to be a paintbrush. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine in the 1.1. The medium has no feather. It has spread. It has no halo, no sheen, and no shade. 7 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation. We got none. In a smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Nemocene. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather. No spread. It looks like a normal 1.1. No halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the 1.1. The extra fine has spread, no feathering, but definitely still has spread. No halo, sheen, or shade. 2 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the 1.1. The medium has no feather. It has spread. No halo, no sheen, no shade. 7 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us some color variation, but we get none in a writing sample. In the smear test, you could probably recover that if you smeared while you were writing. And that, thankfully, is all that I have for the writing sample.
Instead of finding inks that look like Noodler's Tchackovsky, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. And this being a very nice purple, I really wanted a color that worked with it without drawing any attention away. I wanted a nice black like Diamine Onyx. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Noodler's Tchackovsky? The only thing I'm going to say is watch out using broad, wet nibs, because then putting that much ink down, it can be aggressive and really seep through the page. That being said, with wet fine nibs or extra fine, wet or dry, the color you get is fantastic. I didn't experience any kind of bleeding problems with the extra fine or fine nib that I tried it in. I did have a little bit more of aggressive issues in wetter, broader pens. This is a brilliant color. It looks just amazing. I really do like this particular purple. You just have to watch out because it is an aggressive ink. Thanks for watching.